Hey, this is Dave Eisenberg with Brewbound.com. I'm here with Chris Fernari, the website's editor, at the 2014 Craft Brewers Conference in Denver, Colorado. We've been going around asking attendees a handful of questions, one of which is about how the Brewers Association recently tweaked their definition of what it means to be a craft brewer. And we've decided to find out how some of the attendees define craft for themselves. Chris, what have you been hearing on that?
Yeah, we've actually heard a lot of different answers from folks. We asked them sort of how they personally define craft brewer, craft beer, and just how important it is to sort of protect that identity that small and independent producers have worked so hard to create over a number of years. We heard a lot of different responses. Some people who have abandoned the term craft altogether, and call themselves artisan brewers. Or refer to their breweries as farmhouse breweries where they're located. We've heard some responses of brewers continuing to spread the message that they're small and independent, and those are the true craft brewers. So a lot of different responses, and it's sort of interesting to hear what people have to say. So why don't we listen to what everybody else had to say?
Let's take a look.
I think you probably need to draw a line somewhere, otherwise the definition doesn't mean anything. But I think to the consumer, the definition may be slightly irrelevant, because I don't think consumers are sitting there saying, is this a craft beer or is it not? Maybe a certain subsection of them are, but I think consumers are saying, do I like the flavor profile of this beer? Is it different than other beers that I'm drinking? And so I do think there's an importance to having a definition, but I don't know that the average consumer thinks like that.
Yeah, I do believe the definition's got to be cleaned up. It's still way too broad, a little messy. Pushes some people out, it includes too many people in. To me, craft means it's ingredients that matter, that are real, and it is owned by, I do like the ownership definition, and I don't mind the size. The volume's not an issue. If we can make 1 billion gallons of craft beer, it's great. To me, it's all about what's in the beer, the ingredients, and we really need to define that.
I think it's important to support the Brewers Association. We may individually agree and quibble and have little gripes about a definition, and we all have to recognize that any definition is ultimately arbitrary at the boundaries.
I define craft as beer that is well made and enjoyable. I really actually don't get caught up in these other definitions of it. I don't really care about the ownership. No one's really happy about the mega brewers and them jumping in, but if it's still well made and it's a well crafted beer and it's good, it's still good for the industry.
I'm in line with the Brewers Association definition of craft. I think it is inclusive enough, but also definitive enough.
There are a lot of blurry lines at this point, and personally I don't think it's the most important thing ever. We need to just make really good beer. People who want our beer, who enjoy our beer, if we can give them a good value, they're going to keep drinking it. And it's such a complicated question overall, I'm not sure how important it is to us to really be part of that discussion.
My definition is consistent with the BA's definition of a craft brewer, and I think it's absolutely important that we protect that. We collectively own a brand together, and it's really, it has a lot of value, and we need to make sure that that value doesn't sort of get diffuse and kind of it can stand for anything for anybody. So I am fully in support of that definition, and I always want to talk with my brethren in the industry about remembering that we own that together collectively.
I would say craft beer is something that a liquid that somebody really cares about making. There has to be some passion behind it. I know the BA changed their idea of what traditional is. I'm not really clear what that is, but I think American beer is pretty untraditional, so maybe that is part of the definition.
It's no secret that I've been a big proponent of truth in labeling, and it's not so much to take away from any partners, but it's more to protect all of us in the industry and allow the public to really make decisions based on accurate information. So as much as the definition's important, I also look at it as someone who is a craft brewer is someone who takes authenticity and innovation and has a really good sense of place into consideration when they're making their beers.
We don't actually really use the word craft at this point anymore at Jester King. It's not something that we talk about a whole lot because we feel like it's such a broad category that while it is useful for in contexts such as this, such as the Craft Brewers Conference, and to get everybody together who is very interested in making good quality beer at various scales, it's not the most useful point of differentiation between us and other breweries because we do things very differently from the way that a lot of other craft breweries do them.
Well, I think it's really important. I'm glad that the BA continues to beat the drum about what a craft brewer is. And I think that the people that are passionate about making beer are craft brewers, people that are making high-quality product, and the small and independent part, I think, is very important. You know, we're family-owned. There's a lot of family-owned craft breweries, and I think that's a really incredible part of the business.
Being craft is kind of being counterculture and pushing back on the norm.
And for us, craft really means to us as a brand and me as a person, it's more of your intent for how you're trying to do something. And I always think about craft as something that you've made with your hands and that has the intent to kind of bring something new, innovative, and unique to market. And so I do think it's important that we kind of protect the identity. I think that when you get into too many of these kind of like numbers of how you define it based on how many barrels, I think that just becomes pretty convoluted, and it really should be in the intent of the product and how you're bringing it to market.
As opposed to trying to remove things that might potentially be offensive, you're trying to put things that you might put into the beer that you know that are going to offend some people, but it's also going to really please some people. So for me, that's what craft is. It really is about the approach. Why are you making the beer? What's the point? Are you making it to appeal to the widest swath of people, and so therefore you got to remove anything that might potentially be offensive, or are you trying to make the beer specifically so that people that like those specific flavors are going to enjoy the hell out of it? So that's, it's probably just as tortured as the BA definition, but that's what it is for me.
Something needs to be there to protect smaller brewers, because otherwise, the legislative power of the big brewers can really drive law changes that aren't beneficial to anybody small, and that's what's scary about it. I think, regardless of how you define it, and I don't know how I define a craft brewer. I think it's all about attitude. How do you approach brewing? Are you approaching brewing by trying to do something exciting and innovative, or are you doing it because of a focus group telling you that you should be doing this beer, or because somebody else is doing it and you need to be there too? I mean, that's not what craft brewing's all about in my mind. So it's more about innovation and being unique, and size doesn't have that much to do with it. But the approach to the brewing and the approach to the business, to me, is really what defines a craft brewer.
It's a tricky question. I think there's a lot of bigger breweries that now make side brands that they also call craft beer. There's bigger breweries that are now defined as craft beer. To me, as long as we all make good beer, I'm just happy with that.
And is it important to protect the image of what it means to be a craft brewer?
I think from a legislative point, it probably is. But from the other side, we just went through this whole merger with Duvel, and Duvel is a Belgian company, and we were really, really worried that what people would say, especially in our home market, because we are a very, very local brewery. And really the answer was that people really care about what the beer is, if it's good. They really, really don't care what the brewery is and who it is. They want to make sure that the beer is good and that they know what you stand for, and that you stand for, care about your community and make sure that you treat your employees good and make good beer. And that's really more important than anything, I think.